Hi, hello, and welcome to the second look that we're going to be doing with the Mothership 12 Petalmorphosis palette in my little mini-series of 3 looks featuring this palette. I want to apologize in advance one thing. In case I move around and you can see our laundry basket here in the back, my sincerest apologies for that. I usually do make sure to clean up so that, you know, our bedroom is as tidied up as possible before I turn on the camera, so usually the laundry basket would be moved behind the bed so you can't see it. However, Mona, my little taxi, has decided that that's the best place for her to burrow in. She had a pretty bad case of the zoomies this morning, so she ran up and down the stairs she was probably quite exhausted at the end of that. So understandably so, she needs to rest up, and she decided that the best place to do that is burrowed in the laundry basket, and I don't want to disturb her royal peace, so I'm not going to move the laundry basket. I think for the most part I cover the laundry basket, so I just wanted to say that. Okay, I'm going to start doing my color cosmetics makeup, so I'm going to grab the Gucci bronzer in the shade number 3, and I think quite appropriately in this video we could talk about the Pat McGrath Labs holiday collection. Apologies that this video is coming so late. The collection is literally releasing tomorrow, but between being away a few days for work and life happening and getting in the way, I just didn't have the time to I haven't even had time to respond to your comments from my previous video, which is very unusual for me because that's been like a week or something. I never take this long to respond. Anyway, I'm going to take this bronzer and then, of course, gather around children, my children, and let's talk about the Gilded Age, or is that what the collection is called? Gosh, I don't even remember what the collection is called. Let me check. You know what, I just realized the Gilded Age was a TV show on HBO that I just finished watching. However, Mother's collection does have something gilded in the title, but I can't for the life of me tell you if that's the name of the palette or the name of the collection, because there is of course a palette in the collection. The palette is called Gilded Nirvana, but whether that's the actual name of the collection, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, totally irrelevant. So the collection was announced last week, and what can I say? If you ask me to describe this collection in one word, my response would be, it's fine. It's not epic, it's not groundbreaking, it's not amazing, I am not holding my breath. I like it. I'm excited to get one piece of the collection, which will be the palette. We can talk about what's in the collection in a little bit, but I'm getting only one piece from the collection, and that will be the eyeshadow palette. But besides that, I can't say that I am elated that this collection is coming out. I'm not super excited about it. It's fine. That's it. I think I was excited about last year's collection a little bit more. Before we talk about what the collection features, I'm going to take for my blush and highlighter today this very, very old MAC compact from the Nutcracker collection from, I want to say, 2016, which features this beautiful blush in the shade Pleasure Model and the infamous Whisper of Guilt, excuse me, both in the beautiful Hard Gelée formula. This is their extra dimension formula. I absolutely love this little duo. I'm never parting with it. It has to start stinking and being completely unusable for me to ever get rid of it. Anyway, besides the point. So let me read off of the Trendmood website exactly what this collection features, so that we can talk about the pieces, the only piece that I'm really interested in, and briefly mention the other one. So there will be the 12 shade Gilded Nirvana palette with 10 new shades and 2 repeats, and I posted on my Instagram last week what the repeats are actually going to be. It will also feature mini legendary blush duos, so those are her cream blushes, but then in a mini format in little duos. I don't think they're new shades, I think they're all repeats. Then there will be the Gold 001 relaunch, which is one of those like original eyeshadows that she released. The ones that come in the little pots like this. It was in fact one of the first items, or maybe even the first item that Pat McGrath Labs ever launched in 2015, in the distant 2015 when the brand was first launched. And it will also feature, I think, the 001 Cream Shadow Stick, the Love Chrome Gold Combs, okay, and the rest of it, I'm not going to read all of it because it's some names that I don't recognize, but the rest of it is going to be, I'm taking it as collaborations with a variety of artists who have created jewelry for the Pat McGrath Labs brand. So the collection is rather interesting in the sense that she's offering once again collectibles. So a couple of years ago she had the little like shirts and sweaters and hoodies and well, not sweaters, I think it was hoodies and shirts, and I actually have one of these shirts. I purchased it last year. So she's releasing these jewelry pieces, I guess, as little like special collectibles for people who are huge fans of the brand. I am actually rather intrigued what the price of this is going to be, because they are touted as being like actual gold pieces. So I'm very curious what the prices of these are going to be. I think when it comes to that, all bets are off. I'm not going to say that I'm not interested in the jewelry, but it's not a piece of the collection that I'm really excited about, and one that I know that 100% I'm going to buy. I also have no interest in the Gold 001 pigment, because I am drowning in Pat McGrath Labs golds. I really do not need another one. And the cream blush eyeshadow sticks I think are really cute. If you don't have any of them, I think it's a fantastic way to try the formula and a variety of different colors, and also not have to go through a full size of them. They are a lovely formula. I quite enjoy them. They're a bit more on the dewy finish, so you must enjoy having a bit more like a glowy type finish on the skin to enjoy these specific cream blushes. So I would recommend getting them if you don't have any and you would like to try the formula and you've been curious about it. Personally, I'm not getting any because I have already 4 of them in my collection in full sizes. So that leaves us with the 12 pan eyeshadow palette, the Gilded Nirvana. So let's talk about that. I'm quickly going to set all the powders on my face with a bit of the Airbrush Flawless Setting Finish from Charlotte Tilbury. So the 12 pan eyeshadow palette is 100% going to be in her queen, what I call the queen formula, just like the palette from last year. Last year's palette, Luminous Legends, caused quite a bit of discussion because people went on to assume all sorts of things about what the formula of these is going to be, where from the photos I felt like from the very beginning it was pretty clear that these are going to be in her queen formula. And by her queen formula I mean the little palettes that come in this format. And since I already grabbed these two, I'm going to immediately show you the 2 repeats that are present in this palette. So out of the 12, 2 have been featured previously in these queens, and more specifically in the limited edition holiday queens that she released for 2023, I want to say. So these are the shade something Noir Nebula. So Noir Nebula was present in Lunar Nightshade, the queen with the blues, and the shade we're talking about is this one here. It's a blackened teal with teal sparkles. It's actually a very pretty shade, but I don't use dark shades like this a lot, so I can say that I've used this eyeshadow a lot. So that's one of the repeats, and the other one comes from the Bordeaux Bliss queen, and the shade is Mauve Mystique. And that is one of the 2 mattes in the new palette. And I wouldn't even necessarily call this shade a matte, because it's not really a straight up matte. It's a matte that has glitter in it. It is an abomination and it shouldn't exist, but here we are. It not only exists, but it's going to be featured once again in another palette. I actually used Bordeaux Bliss yesterday to remind myself a little bit about how I feel about this queen, and I forgot about how much I like some of the shades that are present in there. Not necessarily Mauve Mystique, because I've made my feelings about mattes with glitter quite clear. I'm not a fan, but yeah, so there we go. That's one of the mattes. The other matte is like a rosy nude. I've zoomed you in. Let's get started on the eye look before we continue chatting about the Gilded Nirvana palette. So the look I'm going for today is the one that I've been talking about for the past couple of weeks, and that is going to be taking this beautiful olive green shade here as a one and done shade. Literally, that's the only shade that I'm going to use like all over my lids and on my lower lashes. And then I'm going to mix in a little bit of this like peachy sparkly shade, because I think the two makes such a beautiful duochrome shade together. And probably I'm going to put this one in my inner corners. The look is going to be extremely simple, you guys, but at the same time I feel like so beautiful and so dimensional. So the first thing I found quite striking about this palette is that out of the 10 shades, at least 4 are in the blue purple family. So we've got quite a over-representation here of blue eyeshadow. So if you are not a fan of blue eyeshadow, this palette is not going to be for you. I like blue eyeshadow quite a bit. I don't wear blue eyeshadow a lot, so I can't say that I am thrilled with the presence of so many blue and purpley eyeshadows in there, because I feel like we've also gotten quite a few of those from Pat McGrath in the past. But okay, it is what it is. It seems to be a trending color if she's doing blue, and we got quite a bit of like other blue eyeshadows in the past year, I feel like blue must be trending. So there are quite a number of blues. There is a shade in there which currently I find very difficult to predict which way it's going to go, because it's called Golden Lurex, and in some photos it appears to be one of those like straight up very golds from Pat, which I think a lot of people are going to dislike. However, in other types of lighting it appears to be a gold with a very strong like dirty olive like green type of shift to it, which makes it appear a little bit like Gigabyte from Subversive, but then in her Queen formula. If that's the case, I would be elated to have this eyeshadow, because I think it would be really interesting to have Gigabyte in the Queen formula, but until we hold the palette in our hands, it would be rather difficult to tell which one of the two. Then I have to say, I spent an embarrassingly long amount of time trying to figure out why the name Platinum Bronze sounds familiar, because one of the eyeshadows is called Platinum Bronze, and then I thought, that sounds so familiar, we have Platinum Bronze from Pat. So I went through all of my queens trying to figure out which shade that is, and then I finally realized that it is not one of the... And then I realized we're not talking about a pressed eyeshadow, we're talking about a liquid eyeshadow. So Platinum Bronze is a liquid eyeshadow, and not only a liquid eyeshadow, I think one of my absolute favorite liquid eyeshadows I've ever bought. I think it's a beautiful shade, it's such a dimensional, pretty like taupey brown with sparkles, and I'm honestly quite excited about having this shade as a pressed eyeshadow in the Queen formula. Then we've got the standard warm browny orange type shade. There seems to be like a Bordeaux type shade in there as well, also very classic for Pat, and a couple of interesting neutrals. There seems to be a very light baby pink with gold sparkles to it. Then we have this beautiful like mauve rosy brown with sparkles that she used on one of the models on her Instagram, and I was drooling all over that shade. I'm really excited about that shade. So overall there are shades in this collection that I'm quite excited about. I'm going to take the green shade now on my lower lashes with a pencil brush. There are shades in this palette that I'm really excited about, and others that I don't really care for all that much. And unfortunately I have to say there are quite a few shades in this palette that I currently don't care for. However, I've been known to be surprised by Pat, so I am open to being surprised and falling in love with some of these shades. I guess we shall see, but yeah, to sum up my feelings, I don't necessarily think that this palette is a repetition of what we got last year, because I feel like the shades we got last year were still very, very different. I think there were more unique tones in Luminous Legends compared to this new palette, because Luminous Legends had a couple of like very interesting like pastel-y type shades, like this very light turquoise pastel shade, which is very sparkly, this like very light lavender. There were a couple of very interesting tones in the Luminous Legends palette. I feel like the shades we're getting here are a little bit more familiar. Like we've seen these shades from Pat before in a variety of different finishes, and now we're getting them in the Queen formula. So there's that. That's why I feel like this whole release has left me feeling a little bit, not necessarily lukewarm, but a bit, it's okay. I don't know if you can notice, I had to crank up my ring light a little bit because it got really dark outside all of a sudden. We've been getting into real fall weather here in the Netherlands. It's getting cooler, darker, rainier, so unfortunately it is time to say goodbye to summer officially. So now for this next part, like the really fun part of this look, I'm going to go straight with my finger into this shade, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing that we did also in my Midnight Sun video, where I'm going to sort of rub this shade together with the olive green to create this like peachy olive green duochrome type thing. So I'm going to rub that right here. And again, you can be very generous with this shade, or you can be very sparing depending on how intense of a duochrome you want. I always feel like I don't want to take away too much from the green, so I put a little bit of the peach just so you can catch flashes of it, but I don't necessarily pile it up because I don't think that's the point. But however, you could definitely experiment and see what happens if you put a fair amount of this shade over the green. But for me, this is already like really beautiful. It creates such a gorgeous duochrome, so much dimensionality, so much sparkle. I don't know whether you can see it on camera, but I can see it here in my mirror. There is so much sparkle. I'm curious whether you will be purchasing the palette tomorrow. I'm going to take this shade here as an inner corner highlight, or will you be skipping it? I will, like I said, purchase the palette because I am open to being pleasantly surprised by the shades that I don't care for, and I'm very excited for the shades that have sparked my interest. For me, it's worth having the palette for the couple of shades that might be real standouts in there, because I do very much like the Queen formula. Maybe that's also something very important to mention. I think a lot of people maybe don't know, like they think of a Mothership palette and maybe one of those like new formulas that's been present since Moonlit Seduction. We're not talking about that formula, you guys. We're talking about a formula that is almost like a hybrid between a powder and a cream. Let me grab a shadow. This is the Queen in Bronze Bliss, and I don't know whether you can tell just by looking at these eyeshadows. Look how creamy they appear in the pan. They're not your typical pressed eyeshadows. The mattes are gorgeous. The mattes are that beautiful like cream to powder formula, which is very easy to blend out, very easy to work with, very flattering on the lids. But since we're not getting too many mattes in this palette, I'm not going to talk too much about them. And the metallic eyeshadows, they differ between being a bit more of like a satin finish with a bit of sparkle to something that is basically a glitter bomb. So for example, let me grab Lunar Luxury here. Look at the texture of this eyeshadow. I barely put my finger in there and I got so much product on my finger and so much payoff, and this will just go on forever and ever. Look how intense this looks. So the thing with these eyeshadows is that, for one, I've heard from people with very oily eyelids that they can't nail a combination of eyeshadow primers which makes these eyeshadows stick on their lids, so they could be quite creasy. And the second problem that I think might occur with these eyeshadows, and that's definitely something I noticed with the Luminous Legends palette, is that some of these are so creamy and so chunky that they almost come off in like balls of chunk when you pick them up from the pan, and then they're very hard to distribute on the lids. So there are a couple of eyeshadows from the Luminous Legends palette that have this texture that I'm not super crazy about. Just be warned, they are very creamy and you have to go in with a very light hand. There's a learning curve to the Queen formula, I think, compared to a lot of her other eyeshadows. But you know, the same can be said about the Blitz Astral eyeshadows, like the hard gelée ones. They also have a bit of a learning curve to them. You really need to play around with them to understand how they work before you're truly able to comprehend why they're so amazing. So maybe it's the same thing with the Queen formula. But one thing that I think differentiates the Queen formula from the Blitz Astrals that are hard gelée is that the hard gelée formula will never make your skin appear more textured, whereas these guys, if you go in with a very heavy hand and you have a lot of texture on your lids, they might emphasize texture. So that's just something to keep in mind. Alright, so here is the final look, and as you can see, I once again paired the eye look with the Burnt Umber mascara from Lisa Eldridge. I don't know if it's all the full colors or something, but I've really been feeling this mascara lately with my looks. So there we go, the Burnt Umber mascara. And I went for Cinnabar from Lisa Eldridge on my lips. But I will say this, I think the sweater that I have on has a bit of a rosier terracotta undertone, whereas this has a bit more like an orange undertone to it. So I don't actually have a perfect match. Now I'm thinking, can I find a lipstick color that is exactly like the color of my sweater, because that is a gorgeous color. It's a terracotta with like a rosier brick undertone, so pretty. Maybe I have a lipstick and I just can't think of it right now, but if I can't and you have recommendations, please let me know. So these were all of my thoughts on the new Gilded Nirvana collection from McGrath Labs, which is releasing tomorrow. Hopefully next week I will be able to review the palette for you, or at the very least show you a demo of it and a couple of looks, because of course I will be doing a week of once I receive the palette so that we can explore all of its potential. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about this look. I'm very curious, do you plan to pick up something from the collection tomorrow? What are you going to purchase? What are you excited about? What are your overall thoughts on this collection? Are you more excited about it than I am, and if so, why? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. As usual, thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!